Good evening, members of the committee, other members, staff and members of the public. Welcome to the strategy group meeting this evening. We have got quite a big agenda tonight, but the first thing we've got to know, which you're probably already aware of, the presentation on the Liveless Care Services Limited has been postponed probably until January now, so we'll get to the January meeting on that one. So that will save half an hour of our agenda to kick off. So we go off the minutes of the last meeting held on the 30th of October 2016. Are you happy, committee? I signed those copies correctly. Thank you. And also strategy group minutes of the 30th of October. That's twice. Apologies for absence. Councillor Chandler. Morgan, I think, also.
Yes, confirmed Colin Morgan, he sent his apologies. He said he didn't know that too, but he would as a matter of courtesy.
Okay, thank you. Any other apologies? Thank you. Declarations of members' interests. You can either declare them now or at the time of the item on the agenda. Are there any to declare now? If not, thank you. We move on to our first substantive item this evening, access communication issues. Daventry calling review. Councillor Wayne Howard.
Thank you, Chair. Daventry calling goes out to 78 villages that covers 34,000 households, reaching our population, which is 79,000 people. The Council 2016 Communication Survey took place in September, which found that the magazine was the most common channel of receiving news and information. 78% of respondents found finding that the information was useful. 65% of respondents read all the magazine, and the majority of respondents thought the design and format was good or very good. Delivery has been difficult, the issue being that the district does share certain postcodes such as LE19, CB23 and NN11. A trial distribution changed recently where we used 3 combined methods, including the Royal Mail door-to-door services. This result has shown some improved coverage. I just want to explain to everybody that Daventry Calling is a 16-page A4 colour publication reaching the population, as I said, of 79,000 people. The cost of the magazine, its production, including its delivery, and allowing for the budget growth, is less than 23p per copy. I believe that it's important that we show contact details of organisations that are for the most needy and most vulnerable of our residents in our district. I think this magazine is one way of promoting all of these organisations. I hope here tonight that everyone will fully support the recommendations, which are: 1, Daventry District Calling magazine continues to be published in print format and by the council's website 4 times a year, in 2017, 2018, and to be reviewed after a 3-year period. 2, that the growth bid of £6,000 to cover distribution costs is approved for 2017-18.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. 85 people responded. Bearing in mind that's 79 parishes, it's just over a village or a town, which I think was exceedingly poor. When we had the last consultation on the recycling and on the new proposals, there was over 1,000, and it was deemed that 71,000 obviously were happy because they didn't respond. So that means that nearly 72,000 people here can't be happy because they didn't respond. So I think it's a very poor snapshot. Only 85 people responded. Does that mean that not many people read it? That's why they didn't respond. I've always said that 4 times, I've never agreed to the 4 times a year. I just think it should have been kept to 3 times a year as it is. A lot of it is still outdated at 4 times a year. And, even I think it's good that you put different phone numbers and groups and different things that are going on, and that goes on annually. And I would like to see it drop back to 3 times a year.
Thank you. Councillor Randall. Any other comments? Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. it's horses to water as to whether anybody replies to a consultation or not. But the one thing that has been highlighted on more than one occasion, both within this chamber and other rooms within this building, is that whilst we accept we're in a digital age, there are many areas of our district that not only can't they receive broadband, but they can't even receive a mobile phone signal. And as a means of communication, there are many that don't have access to either of those, but they do have access to what we're doing as a council. I have no problems in approving points 1 of these recommendations.
That's Councillor Bork and Mr. Councillor Hills.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I certainly support this. I think Daventry calling plays a very important role in what we do. I can't agree with Councillor Randall. I mean, she says, well, because we've got that number of replies, it means a lot of people don't like it. You could also look at it the other way and say that they didn't reply because they liked it. So I think it's the interpretation is what you want to put on it. And I know that when I talk to people, that overall, they are quite happy, certainly in my area, quite happy with it. They like it. They think it provides information, and that's what we need to do. Because communication is vital to whatever we do. And as Councillor Paul said, not everybody is in the digital age. There's still people who don't. And so I certainly approve this.
Thanks, Councillor Hill. Thank you, Councillor Guildford.
I'd like to support this. I think it's extreme good value for money, and that possibly the publications industry could learn something from our great team here, and a copy that standard for only 23p. I think it's a good communication tool. As we all know, in marketing, you have to tell the message once. You have to tell it at least 3 times. The message will get through, which is why the same message is often told. I personally, in my portfolio, have used it on several occasions and have found it useful for getting communication through to the residents of the district. And I know particularly, they like the December issue, because even though we deliver the calendars, it's all about telling them the message more than once in marketing. And by telling it them again in the magazine, the message gets through.
Thanks for doing that, Councillor Guildford. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you for allowing me to comment, Chair. I like the look of Daventry calling on the occasions that I actually receive it. I'm one of those that are in one of these odd Coventry postcodes, and they don't arrive that often. It interests me because I look at it to see what it is that the council feels that it should be saying about itself. Whether it interests other people, and whether from that point of view it is good value, I would have more questions. Organisations that are involved in giving away pre-material, and I've worked in that area for many years, but where you're in the position of actually giving away things that are free, a questionnaire that says, do you think this is good? It's going to be a hugely unreliable method of actually finding out whether people actually did think it was good, whether they had seen it, whether they feel that they should just be polite because they don't want to admit that they don't think that they don't read things that come through the door, and so on. The questions that a serious survey would want to ask, and would want to ask either on a telephone or a face-to-face basis, was, well, with the last edition, what did you think of that article on the second page? Or do you think that what we had on the back page should have been on the back page or something else? Test to see that how these people actually read it. I just feel that at least the way that the survey is reported here to the council suggests to me that these figures don't actually mean very much. Actually looking at them, they don't even add up a majority of respondents thought that it was either good or very good, with 31 and 16%. Does that not make 47%, which is not exactly a majority? However.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Mike Warren.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support the recommendation. I think the magazine is a vital communication link with the residents of Daventry, and we can guarantee that every household in the district gets a copy of this communication, where we can't actually guarantee that they're going to look at internet, Facebook or any other forms of communication. We can guarantee that every household gets the communicate from the District Council.
Thank you for that. Obviously, we have to make sure that Councillor Ritchie's house gets known and gets on delivered to your house, Councillor Ritchie. That's a good point. Thank you, Councillor Wesley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, for letting me have a word. I do think it's the response to the survey is disappointing. Again, it's always disappointing when people don't participate, and unfortunately, I do think that it's such a low response rate on that does make it a little bit difficult to take any value from it. During the presentation, I mean, well, I don't think we're in a position to say that that it's a bad thing or a good thing. Can I just ask one question, just on cost, the 23p each? If that was cut to 3 issues as has been suggested, is the saving literally 25%?
Chairman, I think it will be heading in that direction.
I'm not talking
There will be some fixed costs, which yes, it will be proportional.
So on that basis, just losing that's not a massive saving when there's when we're actually talking about the not knowing whether people read it properly or not. So it's not a huge thing, is it? Cutting it down to 3 issues anyway. So I'm not sure that's really sure that's really a valid point as such. But what I do think is a valid point is reviewing 3 years. I actually think on the basis that we don't really know how many people read it and what they think of it, I think the review should come perhaps a little bit quicker than that next time.
Thank you, Councillor Wesley. Councillor Gilbert.
Only to say that in my experience of publications, the more you have, the cheaper they are in the printing. So if you cut them down, it has the impact of increasing costs per edition. Just a couple of evidences in that, I have received telephone calls asking for information from residents regarding information items they have put in that's been put in calling. I've also received funny comments about the fact that my picture might be in there again, but this is all evidence that it's been read. Did a straw poll at all my parish councils and said, do you read this? Is this fact, is this worth continuing with? And every single one of my parish councils said yes, they wanted it to continue. In fact, they made the comment that any parish magazine is done monthly, but we only do ours 4 times a year.
Thank you, Councillor Gilbert. Tony, want to go back?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. If I could just respond to the comments of Councillor Ritchie in respect of the figures not adding up or the percentages not adding up. I think you were referring to the 4th paragraph down on page 12. And the second sentence there, where the majority of respondents thought its design and format was either good, 31%, very good, 61%, with 37% rating it okay. By my maths, that comes to 84% who felt it was okay or better.
That's the majority. Thank you. I just want to say also my experience over the years that often as leader I get queries about Daventry recording. They're normally about either the fact they haven't received one, or sometimes comments are made forward about trying to make it better. Becky, is that a fair point that you have feedback over the years about Daventry recording? If I go for you, is that a fair point that you do make adjustments or try and take that into account?
Yes, I mean, we do get some, when we do the surveys as well, we get comments about sort of content, and we'll always look at those and see if it's something that, we can consider and include within it. We also get things from residents, mainly around the community, sort of news and events as well. So we do try and look at when people suggest changes or different types of articles.
Thank you for that. Yeah. The other point I'd also make, I always find it fascinating that members not wanting to have 4 additions. Why do members not want to communicate with the public? I find it always strange that 3 or 4 times a year, I'd always go to 4 times a year. You want to try and communicate with the public, because often we get complaints about the fact we don't communicate enough, and therefore, why do you try and reduce that amount of communication? So I just think that's a strange one for me personally. And the other thing I also say is, I mean, Daventry Calling, in my personal opinion, is very good value for money. You heard about the cost of a copy, Councillor Howard, and I think it's a good production actually, it's a good quality paper, and I know that many councillors who don't do this, they often just think they should do it, because obviously I think, as you said, lots of people don't read it, don't go on the internet, they don't look at Facebook or anything like that, so therefore they want this as a means of communication. And the other thing I will also say on the survey is, if you have anything controversial, you get lots of responses, in my own opinion. That's why I found in my own experience. If something isn't well liked, you're going to get tons of people coming in and saying so. So I think the fact we have very few tends to indicate more of a positive than a negative. Does the council want to come back?
No, all I was going to say is obviously out of that 85 people that did respond, 35% said they either only read half or less than half. So, I mean, even those people that did bother to respond, 35% didn't even bother to read it all. Now, probably we need to find out why they didn't bother to read it all.
Well, if you buy a newspaper, Councillor, would you read it all?
But this is only, 4, 5, 6
Yeah, well, just to make the point, but sometimes people get a publication and they don't
to me,
necessarily read
that's
it
the
all.
content that's no interest in them whatsoever. Maybe we need to ask actually what people want to read about.
Well, yeah, I won't go to Councillor Randall because we've been there before many subjects. Okay, thank you. Right, on that basis, committee, are you happy to support the recommendation?
Agreed.
Thank you. Human resources issues now. Local government pension scheme discretions. Councillor Griffin.
The local government pension scheme makes available certain discretions. This is what this paper is about. These are additional benefits. If council fails to make a policy decision on each discretion, this would leave the council open to challenge. In the paper, you will see 3 existing discretions agreed previously by council. Excuse me. Appendix A is a discretion policy for you to consider. You will have noted the report accompanying the appendix is very explanatory with regard to the new discretions and their existing agreed discretions. But I would also draw your attention to the conclusions on page 17. Importantly, the Council retains the right to change these policies at any time. However, the policy current at the time of a relevant event will be the one applied. And I would also mention that it is important that we have the means to manage organisational change, and these policies will assist with that. As you know, times do change, and we do have to have that ability to change with them if necessary. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Griffin. Any comments or questions? Councillor Randall.
I have on point E to award lump sum compensation of up to 104 weeks' pay in case of redundancy. So that's 2 years' worth of pay. I think that's way above what general firms would be paying. And I don't understand why we wouldn't go for that one. I mean, a lot of people only get paid a week's pay for how many years they've been there. So if it's 15 weeks service, they'd only get 15 weeks. So why would we go up to 104 weeks pay?
If I can through you, Chair, we don't is the answer. The discretion is that we could pay up to 104 weeks. Actually, it says in the report that ours is capped at 79.8 weeks.
Thank you, Councillor Randall. Councillor Paul.
Yes, just below Councillor Randall read out on page 16, it just repeats what the 151 officer has said. It is a discretionary award.
Thank you. Are we happy to agree with the advice?
Agreed.
Thank you. corporate issues. First one, 2018 review of parliamentary constituency boundaries in England. I'm going to ask Tony Phillip if you actually just do you want to take the please, Tony?
Thank you, Chairman. I suppose as you're probably aware, the Boundary Commission for England is currently conducting a review or consultation on review of boundaries for all the parliamentary constituencies. The consultation period, or certainly the first stage of the consultation period, runs the 5th of December, and we are invited, as others are, to make comments on the proposals. What they're looking at is the parliamentary constituencies are making recommendations for change from September 2018, and the expectation is that these are first come into effect with the parliamentary elections in 2020. Perhaps the easiest way to explain this is if you can go to the plan, the map on page 27, and the green lined area is our current parliamentary constituency, and what is being proposed is the area ringed in blue. So essentially the changes are that a section of the district to the south, the wards of Woodford and Weedon, would fall out of the Daventry constituency, and wards from Leicestershire around Lutterworth would come into the constituency. Hence the proposed name of the new constituency, the Daventry and Lutterworth constituency. The report actually sets out some rationale why we wouldn't want to go forward with that, and because of the losing a significant chunk of our district would dilute the effect of the MP for this area. So the recommendation, or it's a result item as a consultation paper, that the Boundary Commission for England be asked to revise its proposals in respect of the Daventry and Lutterworth constituency to ensure the whole Daventry District Council area is included in the Daventry constituency.
Thank you, Mr. Tony. Obviously, we have a very effective MP in this area anyway, but I think it's always recognized by all parties. And I have to say, in the past, we have actually had two MPs representing our district, especially the Kettering side, when Kettering used to float around the boundaries around Kettering ourselves. And both Labour and Conservative MPs from Kettering used to represent us. It wasn't just one party. And equally, obviously, we had our own Daventry. And I have to say, I think it's far better having one MP in our district representing us. That's no disrespect to anyone from the two sides before. That's just a personal view, and obviously I support this advice. We're open to discussion. Councillor Brown.
Thanks for letting me address the committee, Chairman. I would say, as Ward Member for Weedon, I have very great concerns about the boundary changes as proposed. What the Boundary Commission are suggesting is that villages on the very cusp of Daventry, Norton, Newnham, etc., are to be moved into another parliamentary constituency. And I know from anecdotal evidence in Barton, for example, where you have a Daventry MP that's a part of Wellingborough district or borough, that actually causes a great deal of confusion amongst voters at election times. So I think there's a risk of creating a democratic deficit if these proposals are passed as they currently stand. And so I'm firmly in favour of objecting to them in a formal manner.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chairman. I feel like Craig Rebel Hallwood. There's only one word to describe this: bonkers. Purely and simply, we've been through the Boundary Commission process before. They haven't taken into account that we are a growth area. They haven't taken into account the fact that we've got 500 dwellings coming here, we've got 4,000 dwellings coming there. Quite simply, I've often felt it, and the Deputy Chief Exec and I were in Westminster. The fact that I was in hindsight for getting told off for virtually saying those almost exact words, I absolutely recommend that this document goes forward, but I think stronger words need to be used, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Councillor Guildford.
Being a member of the Woodford ward, I have the same concerns as the member of the Weedon ward. Also have the same concerns that it's bonkers, you know, their addresses in Daventry district, but they're not in Daventry MP. And it's how it all fits in with the Shire as well, because they're in Northamptonshire and Northampton County, so it's logical at the moment, and it's going to go on.
I appreciate the national position because they're trying to reduce the number of MP seats. It must be difficult to try and get that balance right, but we have our right to have our strong say on this. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think it's bonkers. I think what is bonkers is the remit that has been given to the Boundary Commission and the criteria that they have got to work to. And if you try to actually put together constituencies that are sensible, using these criteria are very, very difficult. I would therefore suggest that those who are in a position whose political hue makes it easier for them to challenge government ministers, maybe something that is actually needed. I totally support the idea that the whole of Daventry district should be within a single constituency. I'm absolutely with that. But I think that there's an argument, a much stronger argument, that needs to be made for it, because after all, not every district is going to be within the one constituency. We have got to accept that with the criteria that have been produced, one of the constituencies in Northamptonshire is going to need to cross a boundary. The boundary commissioners are not stupid. They know that populations change. They know that Daventry's population in the coming years might rise rather dramatically, but they are not allowed to take account of that. They are confined to what they do, and therefore I think that if we are putting an argument to the Boundary Commission, it has got to be in terms of the criteria to which the Boundary Commission is going to work. It has got to be in the form that it recognises the challenge to the Boundary Commission in trying to come up with something sensible. And I think above all, it has got to argue that the strength of the local connections. I think there are strong arguments that say that, that particularly the villages that lie very close to Daventry have got to be part of the Daventry constituency. Remove Weedon from Daventry constituency, and you remove Norton. And Norton, by the time that Churchfield is built, is almost going to be surrounded by Daventry town, which makes the whole thing a nonsense. And I think you can argue that although Woodford is much more distant from Daventry, nevertheless, in terms of its implications, there is a regular bus service, at least there was, that runs between Daventry and Banbury. I'm not sure. I would be surprised if there was a regular bus service that ran between Woodford and Dusso, which would be the centre of the other constituency. So I think it is the arguments about the connections that exist, the catchment areas of schools, those sorts of things that I think that have got to be stressed. Because I don't think an argument that is just in terms of maintaining a single district in a single constituency, I don't think that has got a great deal, will have a great deal of force with the Boundary Commission, for they know that granting it to Daventry is something that they would not grant to any other of the districts. And we are not even arguing here that there should not be parts of Daventry constituency which actually are part of other districts in Northamptonshire.
That's a fair point, actually. Thank you for that feedback, Councillor Ritchie. Yes, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to add, I support exactly what my colleague said over here. I mean, the truth of the matter is that these areas to the south of us have been really important to our growth going forward. Weedon in particular is bearing the brunt of a lot of change. And I think it's really unfair that we then, thank you for your help and goodbye. That would be a terrible way to do things. I do hope that the Boundary Commission will see sense. The one advantage to the plan, to be honest, from a political point of view, would be that the areas to the north, the one thing they do bring is diversity. A lot more diversity would be very interesting politically, but from a technical point of view, what it does to Daventry and what it does to those villages, I really don't like it. I think they have to come up with a slightly better plan to fit in.
Thank you much indeed for that. Any more comments or views? So are you happy basically with the recommendation? Taking account of the feedback we have today, and thank you, Councillor Richard, for your comments there about where some of the focus should be on that. feedback. Are you happy? Sorry, Tony, my apologies.
So Chairman, if I might just address, at least in part, the comments that Councillor Ritchie was making. The criteria for creating the new constituencies is set out within the report in section 4. The prime driver is numbers of electorates, but it also goes on to talk about special geographical considerations, local government boundaries as existed in May 15, boundaries of existing constituencies, and local ties that will be broken. And there are arguments against each of those criteria within the report.
Right.
So whilst the recommendation of the result item is to ask the Planning Commission to revise the full report, it's set as part of that consultation.
That's helpful to know, obviously that's important. And also, if you look at the actual changes, we actually have more residents in the existing one than we would in the proposed new one, which you would have thought would help the overall case anyway. So, on that basis, we're happy to agree with the recommendation, or the result item actually. Thank you. And whether it makes any difference or not, well, any time to go. Next item is Local Strategic Partnership 2016 update.
Chairman, I'll introduce this if you wish. I as officer sit on the LSP, and councillors in this room also on the LSP. The LSP is a standalone body, but obviously has a great deal of support from this council and recognises that. But obviously as a partnership, it looks to itself as to how it wants to operate, and what it's done in March this year was look at its terms of reference, its way of operating, and agreed for itself a revised structure. But what it wants to do is have that structure endorsed by the council, being a key partner, and that's all that's simply being sought tonight. Terms of reference are effectively being operated to, and what will happen with the LSP is it will annually review its arrangements. So it may not be the first time you see this, but in the past the operation has been for some years. I would like to think this will operate for some years. We have practiced it, as I say, and it seems to be working okay at the last meeting in particular. There's a particular emphasis on the forum underneath the board and being able to deliver on what's required as a partnership. And what that means is a partnership is a community strategy, much of which reflects our own corporate plan. So there's great synergy with what we do anyway. The forum is trying to be a single body now to actually do all that delivery side. And I would commend its engagement of various partners. Some of the activities which you would have heard about perhaps in other forums. So for example, in issues to do with welfare reform were taken up very strongly by the LSP and the operational group underneath. So I do commend that endorsement to you, Chair.
Thanks, Steve Simon. Any comments or questions? Councillor Hills.
Yeah, I totally agree with this report. Basically, the LSP and the review was conducted with the partners on the board. And I'd like to pay tribute to Ros Tidman, who, whilst she has left our employ, her role in the arrangement of the LSP, I think, was exemplary. And we have now got a replacement in Alan Burns, but she conducted this review in conjunction with the partners, and it's not what the district council put forward, it's what the partners on the board have put forward, and I think that's where it's something that we should totally endorse.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Hills. Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I attend these meetings, what I would like to do is actually, and I don't know if we do that, see a yearly report, really, just to say what has come out of these meetings, because so many of these meetings, and not just this one, but lots of others, you almost find that they just become a talking shop. So it's things like, you know, one of the ones was every child gets the best start. But I never actually know how that's implemented and actually what this board has done, you know, to put this into practice. So what I would, you know, so it's all right changing all these things, but I'd like to see where the goals go and, you know, and have a report on actually what difference this board has made.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Randall.
Just a comment, there is an annual report produced every year and circulated.
We'll make sure Councillor Randall gets one. Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a question that concerns the membership of the LSP Executive Board. It seems to be very well covered by the public sector, but there's only one member from the business section, which is futures. Is there a reason why there's not any more, or I just think it's a bit light on the business side?
I would suggest to you the LSP board would love to have more private sector.
Yeah, I've read that in the report that it's difficult getting
very difficult, and it's not unusual for an LSP in this area. It happens generally, it's happened in the past generally, trying to get their engagement. I think it has to be that an LSP will produce something of particular significance and importance to the business sector for it to then engage, but it would probably be on that task basis. We have tried and it's not worked too well.
I think it's just a shame that they're not there. Really?
I think of those that are very influential chief officer of a local voluntary organisation is very keen to take a more active role, so I expect some changes in the coming weeks.
Also, Councillor Warren, I can tell on the LEPs, we also have attempted to get business interest. We had Senet, for instance, that have business interest. It takes up a lot. The people who are on there are very committed, actually, they're very good. But often, it's quite hard to find ones who are willing to do it. But obviously, those who do it find it very engaging and very worthwhile. I was going to say on the point about what Councillor Randall received in the report of the LSPs, do all members receive a copy of that?
I believe it's circulated.
Circulated all members.
Certainly can be, it's not a problem.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah. Are there any more? Councillor Omas.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I want to make a similar point to that Councillor Randall has made. But first of all, I would say that, as I understand it, and most of what I know about the LSP, actually comes through my NCAL. I understand that this is the most successful LSP in the country.
Well, thank you, Smith, for that.
And I also understand that, in fact, some of which are totally moribund. But, so congratulations to those people who are involved in Daventry's LSP. What concerns me slightly is that, in fact, if I was to say to probably many of our members, but certainly the public, do you know what the LSP is? Do you know what it does? What are its achievements? In spite of the annual report, I think there would be blank stares. I'm sorry, I do think there needs to be much more done to inform at least members about what is going on. And annual reports, fine. Perhaps we could have a training session, one of our member development sessions, perhaps devoted to telling us more about what is done, how it's done, what is being achieved. It's been running now for 14 years. There must be plenty of things to talk about.
Well, that's very helpful feedback, actually. That's an idea we can really take forward. So thank you indeed for Councillor Omas. And thank you for informing us tonight. It's the most successful one in the county. So that's also nice to hear as well. So thank you for that. Are there any more comments, or we have to agree with the recommendation? Now move on to community culture and leisure issues. The first one being development of Daventry Sports Park. Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Firstly, I'd like to say that the next two items under my portfolio, to me, are both very important. The first is this one regarding the development of sports park. I'm going to take a bit more time than I usually do, and you will see the recommendation before you. The first one, with a grant of up to £360,000 from the FA, namely the Football Foundation, is available for enhancing the changing rooms and the artificial pitch. That a supplementary agreement is put in place between the District Council and SLM, who we know run the leisure centre. And up to £200,000 planning obligation funds and earmarked capital reserves is authorised to be used. The proposal outlined in point 1 is to refurbish one side of the changing rooms, provide a classroom and refurbish the reception area. This is badly needed, as has been needed for a long time. The current AstroTurf will be turned into a 3G pitch, making it more suitable for FA League games, and if agreed, this is due to start in spring 2017. 4.2 outlines the impact on football development. Currently 17 teams using the site, which over a 5-year period will have increased dramatically. We know that regarding these types of pitches, there are different surfaces and different heights of AstroTurf needed for the various sports, which means this would no longer be suitable for hockey. Having said that, we have facilities for hockey at the William Parker Academy, and they are happy to accommodate extra bookings. Both Longbuckby and Saints hockey clubs, whilst I fully understand they were disappointed, it does mean though that hockey would not be displaced. It would not be lost to Daventry. Further discussions would take place, and the District Council, without making any promises, will look to see if they can help. And one other thing is believe that the cost would be slightly cheaper at the Academy. Finally, I'd like to refer back to a few years ago, when we obtained funding to turn the tennis courts in the town to all-year usage, which included a grant from the LTA and the FA, and work to be done to the changing facilities on the sports park. Now, this was refused at planning, fair enough, that's part of the democratic process. But once you turn down funding, it's very difficult, extremely difficult, to get back on the list. It's taken all this time to do so again. This work is badly needed. If rejected, again, I very much doubt whether we will be considered for a very long period. I recommend we take this opportunity. The park badly needs upgrading. There is a need of pitches for the clubs, and the sports park is also used regularly by N Sport, who bus a lot of our schools from around the district in, and they use it as part of their school programme. So I would ask the strategy group to support this recommendation.
Thank you indeed, Councillor Hills. Comments, observations, Councillor Lomax.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again, Chairman. I welcome this, and I'm very much in favour of it. 2 or 3 years ago, about 3 years ago, I chaired a task panel with scrutiny looking at SLMs and what they were doing in the town. And while the sports park was not a substantive part of our investigations, we did investigate it. It was very clear that a great deal of upgrading and a great deal of promotion of it was needed. At that time, SLM said that they had it on their agenda and it was for a future year. And I'm glad that it's now come forward, and it's very much needed, and I'm very much in favour of it. It's a pity about the hockey, because ideally the sports park should be providing for a variety of...
the provisions being made there.
Yes, yeah. But I do hope that in fact there will be close eye kept by whoever, whether it's ourselves or whether it's SLM, on what's happening in the hockey world, because that also is a sport which is growing, yes. And to make sure that in fact the facilities are suitable for the teams that want to play.
Thank you, Steve. I shall let feedback's been taken on board by Councillor Hill, noted by Councillor Hills. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I fully support it. I know Councillor Hills, you do a tremendous amount of work for sports in Daventry, and it's actually really welcome because we want to be a destination for sport for the entire of Northamptonshire. We really do. And one thing Daventry has had until recently, we have had that. And I do feel, having played on those pitches, there's been a deterioration over the last few years. And it's been noticeable when people are playing, they talk, and they talk about going elsewhere teams. And the last thing we want to do is lose that. We want to increase it. And I think this gives us an opportunity to do that. So I fully welcome it.
Thank you, Steve.
Sorry, I'd like to add my make, Chair. As for the hockey, I appreciate that they would be displaced, but knowing William Parker's school and the headmaster and the regime they've got there, it could be the ideal school to take hockey on and actually develop the sport in more detail.
Very much indeed, that positive feedback. Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Sports park, I see that as a multi-sports area. So I don't know what else other than football will be played on this pitch. I think it is a disappointment that the hockey is going. The hockey is well used and it is growing. I mean, over the last year they've had new teams, hockey teams playing up there, and you know, as the school would accommodate them. I mean, the other thing that we've got to think about is that, you know, our numbers have decreased rapidly in this area for the two senior schools. There are huge gaps in both of them. What happens if that school closed? Then where would the hockey team go? Would we be in a position to help make provision somewhere else? So I don't know what else is played on this, on these pitches. I don't know if it is only football or whether other sports can be played on it. I don't know if rugby training can be played on it. I don't really know a lot about the surface at all. But I just think, you know, that it is the disappointment that a sports park, we see, you know, we've got a sports park and yet we're putting on a new surface and one of the sports now has to go.
Okay, I'm sure I've been noted by Councillor Hills. Also on the school side, we're doing our full party to make sure we sustain the education facilities in Daventry moving forward. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes there. That's not to say the point you raised isn't a fair point. Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support this recommendation, and I'd just like to say that Markham Magpies, which are a football club within my ward, have been the benefits of a fund from the Football Foundation as well. And were it not for that amount, would the football pitch, the artificial pitch that is going in there now, which will be early spring, I think, it would not happen. So fully supported.
Thanks to you, Councillor Warren, for those. And I have to say, the point that Councillor Hills made about not turning down money to not agreeing to those is often a mistake, because you won't get the chance again for some time. I know that Bolton's done very well in terms of promoting their area and getting lots of good money in there, so well done to you and the area as a whole.
Well, they first got funding from the Football Foundation to have their pavilion built, and as that went so well, when they rebid for the artificial pitch, they looked very favourably on them.
So it's just reinforcing the Councillor Hills point.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Councillor Warren. Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair. Fully welcome this funding, external funding. Being an avid football fan as well, that's going to enhance facilities. However, it should never have been either or, actually, especially on the back of the bounce back that we've seen in terms of Olympic sport success, in terms of cycling. I've noticed in the report in terms of there's no direction from England hockey in terms of, so I'm interested in what liaison we've made, considering in the last week there's Olympic gold medalists with our children from Daventry District holding training sessions, and that liaison is very much in place. The provision within William Parker Academy, of course they are corporate, independent in that respect. So when we say we can't make promises in terms of how we'll help as Daventry District, I think we need to stipulate what we can do if that does fall through and we lose all of that diverse activity. That's going to come from there.
Thanks, Councillor Pritchard. Do you want to just fill in a bit about the details? Question.
Thank you, Chairman. In terms of England hockey, we have met them on a number of occasions over about maybe 2.5 years. It was actually England hockey that suggested that we direct hockey towards the Ashby Road at William Parker site as a solution. They were aware that the War Foundation was putting this money forward. They did also invite us to put a bid in to them for investment on the sports park, and they rejected it. And told us it wasn't a priority. So we've done all we can really with England hockey, and we've worked with them to try and make sure there is a solution that suits both sports.
Thank you. Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased that Councillor Pritchard brought up about the Olympic hockey team and their success. However, I also had a copy of the report from Councillor Lomax. I believe Councillor Randall was on that task panel, and the amount of use that the sports park got was absolutely appalling. I'm not a lover of football, however, I'm a realist, and if the pitch is going to be used for 5 days a week with the schools plus the weekend, then you know I've got to look at the benefits. By the same token, I firmly believe that we should not dispense with or look at hockey. I know we said that Hockey England or England hockey will, you know, welcome going to the school, and I think the school could be a good breeding ground for future hockey players. So, quite honestly, the two could have a really happy ending within the school, provided that we keep our eye on it and that we are fully supportive through the education process. I'm all for diversity in sport. I get fed up with football, ran down my proverbial day in, day out. However, I would like to see that we fulfil the need for football, i.e. support the motion, and I would also like to add the fact that we should keep a very watchful eye on hockey within our district. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Councillor. I thought you were a big football man. Thank you, Steve, for that. I come back to Councillor Hill, so you've had some questions and points made, raised, Councillor Hill.
Yeah. I'd like to thank everybody for the comments made, particularly those in support, because obviously it's something that I'm very keen to do. Yeah, I mean, my sport was football, but as far as I'm concerned in my portfolio, I want to promote and encourage all sport, which I try to do. And I know, as some of us rightly said, that we have had consultations with the hockey. And when we talk about using it for other things, I know that, first of all, it doesn't stop it being used for running and various other games. And when the schools arrive, yes, there is football. They have used the rugby pitch in Daventry. I've been there when there's been tournaments held there. And regarding the hockey, it will never be cast aside. It's something we will continue to look at. And I feel convinced that whilst, yes, we've had to direct them elsewhere, this is one of our last chances to really get this brought up to scratch. And if we don't grasp it now, quite frankly, I can't see it happening for a very, very long time. And you watch the public and the people then start to moan and groan about what we have not done. So I fully ask for your full support on this.
Thanks, Councillor Hills. And of course, the town's growing all the time, so it's going to be pretty important to see it from return. Oh, we have to set the three recommendations. The second one, Councillor Hills, is the Women's Tour 2017.
Right, thank you, Chairman. The Women's Cycle Tour. You all have the recommendation in front of you. One, that this council wishes Daventry as the start of the redemption stage. Two, that a maximum of £50,000 be allocated towards the cost of hosting the start of the Northamptonshire stage. And just to go back, a few weeks ago, Ian Vincent, Simon Bowley and I sat down with representatives from N-Sport, County Council and the race organisers to look at and discuss the proposal. I think it will be fair to say that at this stage we were somewhat circumspect. But having had a full and frank discussion, we then formed an opinion that this was something we should look at further because there were benefits to be gained for the district and the district council from hosting this. Firstly, the Women's Cycle Tour is a professional event. Since the launch, it has gone from strength to strength. It's attracted worldwide media attention, it's been on ITV4, and it's been covered in many other countries. Cycling in this country is gaining in popularity due to our success in the Olympics Games. It's popular within our district, and events such as the Cycle Fest and the Triathlon prove it. But it will still give a big boost to cycling within the district.
And whilst we are talking about benefits, firstly, it will promote Daventry district on the world map. I think our communications portfolio holder, it allies nicely with the Love Daventry initiative. It will promote our town and many of our villages. It's an excellent way to promote our businesses, and where other councils have played host, there's been an increased spending which has helped the local economy. It will add to our health agenda, encourage physical activity, and also encourage more women to take up sport. There is no doubt the media and the organisers, which is the Sweet Spot group, were greatly appreciative of the support they got from the town and villages during last year's tour. There are basically 2 or 3 indicative routes of which one will be selected. We will have some input, and there is excellent coverage of our villages. We shall be seeking sponsors, but it will be wrong to rely on them. But the 50,000 would still be money well spent because the benefits outweigh the costs. You will see that the tour runs from the 7th to the 11th of June, and I would now like to put some icing on the cake with some excellent news received this afternoon. I would like to confirm that the date is Wednesday the 7th of June, which is actually the grand departure stage, and that is excellent news for Daventry. We intend, in conjunction and prior to the official start, to involve local children in various activities, etc., and also involve local businesses if they have become sponsors or whatever. This is confirmation that Daventry is open for business. We want and need to increase the profile of Daventry district. As I said, encourage sport, physical activity and a healthy lifestyle. This is a tremendous opportunity. The benefits are there. Take them, endorse the recommendation, and remember, we have to confirm this month, which is November. It will still go to full council, but we at Strategy tonight must give full support and a very firm indication of that support. And I would like to finally add, the organisers have said, yes, we know that you have to discuss this in a public forum. No official announcements or press releases are to be made without coordination with them and other partners. I put this recommendation to you all. This is an opportunity, and I believe an opportunity which we shouldn't miss. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks indeed, Councillor Hills. I believe that the great departure, which is the start basically, gathers a lot more interest, media interest, than all the other stages.
That's correct.
So that's great news for Daventry. Very high profile.
That would give it a very, very high profile indeed.
Yeah.
It would enable other events to take prior to and after.
Yeah.
And I think there are various ways that we could give a boost to our towns and villages as a result of that.
Yeah, and I was speaking to my chief exec earlier about the looking for sponsorship, how that's going. So,
yeah.
But obviously the key question tonight is the intended decision tonight, or recommendation tonight, to take to council. That's also a very positive stage of us achieving this outcome.
Yeah.
Open to questions. Councillor Collins.
Thank you. Yeah, once again, it's a very easy one to support because cycling, particularly women's cycling, has actually skyrocketed over the last 3 years. The numbers of people taking the sport up is, I think, it's doubled in the last 3 years for women. And the other thing is, it's very positive for young girls because they've actually got role models to look up to. And when you're hosting the start of an event, particularly a tour stage, and I've been to a few of the French tours, the start and the finish are the key too, particularly the start.
Yeah.
And the start particularly will bring in a tremendous amount of traffic to other businesses to spill onto that. Obviously we'll have to be mindful of how we coordinate and how we operate, but the reality is it's a tremendous opportunity for many businesses to get involved. Even though I know you're right, you're saying tentatively can't rely on that, but I do think it would bring in a lot of business.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Councillor Lomax.
Thank you, Chairman. I will speak again. I agree with everything that's just been said by Councillor. I'm very much in favour of it. I found myself in a traffic jam 2 or 3 years ago. I didn't know what this traffic jam was about. It was on the No Bottle Road, and it was the tour. I had no idea it was taking place, and there were hordes of people there, in the open countryside, on the No Bottle Road, to watch a few seconds, really, of this 100 or so cyclists whizzing past. And very exciting it was. And I watched it again this year at another venue in the open countryside, and again it was very well supported. But I think the reasons why we should support it, and we should actually take this opportunity, is actually summarised on the 6th paragraph on the item 4 on the paper, for all the reasons that have already been stated.
That's very kind, and hopefully you'll be on your bike as well, Richard.
I should be, but unfortunately not.
Next Councillor Councillor Wesley.
Yeah, I just want to say what a fantastic opportunity. Really, really good. Growing sport, Grand Park, that's just that's really what's everything on reason to maybe it's going to be a start stage here, and that's just gone beyond all my expectations. I'm sure there are many people in the town that would really, really look forward to this. And particularly, we do have Daventry Cycling Club, of course, and
yes, that's right.
See them, see Daventry Cycling Club, and I'm sure they'll offer any support that this council wants to use them for, and they'll be more than delighted to sort that out. I know everyone was really excited when it came through the town last year, and virtually everybody turned out to watch it, and it was really, really exciting.
Very much deep down. It was same Council in Brixford a couple of years ago, went through there. And of course the schools come out and watch it, and the kids come out, everything. It's a really good way of promoting.
And along with the rugby try as well, because of course a large part of the triathlon is cycling as well.
That's true.
And there's some of the girls that go out cycling through the triathlons as well. And I'm sure that would be really, really exciting.
Thanks, Councillor Wesley. Councillor Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. Purely simply, 9 years ago we had a transport conference in town, probably the first one in England. Okay, people poo-pooed pods, however that pods are operated now in airports, Milton Keynes, etc., etc. But one thing it did do, it brought people into Daventry, and it presented Daventry to not just the UK media, but to the world media. This will do undoubtedly the same job. Part of my portfolio takes on board tourism, and I would urge that we get the message out to local companies, whether it be a greasy sausage van or whether it be high-grade companies, to get involved, because the amount of tourists that will come to see this is an ideal opportunity for our economy to benefit considerably more than the £50,000 that we will be putting in. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Councillor Paul, for that. Any more comments, observations? If not, are you happy to agree the recommendation? Two recommendations. Thank you, Mr. Steve. Thanks, Councillor Hills. Now we're on strategic planning issues. There's only 5 items this time, Councillor James. You're slipping up a bit. You need more than that. The first one is Portsmouth Neighbourhood Development Plan.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be as brief as I can. The first item in Braunston Neighbourhood Development Plan. We now have to consider the recommendations of the examiner following the examination of the Braunston Neighbourhood Plan. There are 3 items there which we have to deal with. One is that the designated area of separation, which was in the original plan, has been rejected by the examiner, and Daventry agrees with that rejection. The second is an amendment of words. Relating to telephone communications, the examiner recommended that we mitigate the adverse impact or visual impact of telephone communications whilst encouraging that. But we've widened that out by taking the word visual out, because there are other adverse consequences apart from the visual aspect. The other one is a rejection of words in recommendation 21 and 22. So political consequence. So subject to approval of strategy full council, this will now go out to a referendum. The provisional date is the 16th of February 2017, and subject to at least half of the half of the voters saying yes to it, the business manager will then make the Launceston Neighbourhood Development Plan. Thank you.
Well, Steve, Councillor James, because we've got a referendum Brits for a week today. Those who don't know, and that's obviously we're obviously looking forward to Coburn in this case in Launceston. So thank you, Steve. Any comments or questions? Are you happy to agree the 6 recommendations before you? Agree. Second one says Ravensthorpe Village Design Statement.
Ravensthorpe Village Design Statement. Members may remember that this came up before the previous strategy group, and also before full council, where we recommended that the village design statement go out for a second consultation. The reason for that was that the original, not the original plan, the original village design statement, which was made in the late 90s, before the first agreement district, included 3 parcels of land being designated as open land. There are 2 parcels of land that are effectively outside of the village. When the design statement came up for consideration at last strategy group, these 3 parcels of land had been excluded. And it was thought that that was not the intention to exclude those, and that including them would require a second consultation. This has now taken place, and the result of the consultation is that it's even Stevens. Roughly half those consultees who replied want the 3 parcels of land put back in the design state, and the other half want them left out altogether. Now, these 3 pieces of land, one of which in recent times had a planning application submitted for it, which was rejected, and it then went to appeal, and the appeal also rejected it. So they are not parcels of land that one would consider would readily be suitable for development, given the current planning situation, especially we have a more than 5-year land supply. So it seemed logical that the 3 pieces of land which were left out of the first consultation and then put back in on the second consultation, that they should stay in it. And that is the recommendation that I'm putting forward. And if so, then that's acceptable. This VDS can now be adopted.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor James. Any questions, Councillor Micklewhite?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to address the committee. I have to say this issue has caused a degree of angst in the village. There is a significant disenchantment with this council there due to what is interpreted by some as heavy-handedness and a lack of regard for what the parish council appears to want. The land in question isn't particularly fantastic quality. Taking them in reverse order, H is of no intrinsic value at all. It is green, give it that, but it is really just a tangled mess of overgrown brambles and serves as a dumping ground. G is a small sloping field, has no view at all, although it may possibly have one from the upstairs floor of the houses on the other side of the road. F is very similar to G. There is a very nice view if you go across it, but it's private property, and you need to cross it to be able to appreciate that view. I think the owner's position perhaps would have been helped, and they did attend a recent meeting, and they've submitted a view in the consultation that you've got in front of you. I think the owner's position would have been helped if they proposed something protecting that view in some way, but they've chosen not to do that. So in terms of what to do, it is, as we've just heard, according to the report, 50-50. If you don't count the statutory undertakings, the views from the village are 13 in favour of reinstatement, 15 against. I see a significant degree of orchestration there with the comments against. The negative comments, or the majority of them seem to follow similar lines of argument, often based around the resentment issue with this council that I mentioned earlier. There are some, but not an overwhelming quantity of comments opposed to the reinstatement on the merits or demerits of that, rather than on the alleged heavy-handedness of this council, which I don't subscribe to, but that's the view it's taken. My impression from talking to people around the village is that it isn't a 50-50. The margin is more in favour of reinstating this land than not reinstating it, and for that reason I have no reason to argue against the officer advice in this paper.
Okay, thank you. Can you just explain, Councillor McGrath, what do you mean by the perception of this council as heavy-handed? I don't understand that. We've gone out to consultation twice. I don't quite understand where you're coming from. I'm just trying to understand it.
Well, it's as Councillor James indicates, there was a consultation exercise on an earlier version of this document, and the planning department then came to the view that these 3 parcels of land were missing and should have been put in, and therefore the second consultation was undertaken. There seems to be maybe it's down to a lack of poor quality communication between the village and here, or whether it's some parties didn't particularly like the possibility of being reinstated per se, I don't know. But it was being marketed, if that's the right term, around the village as a big brother sort of telling us what to do when we've had our democratic chance to express a view, and we did, we took it out. I have to say, I don't believe that's supported by many of the opinions I hear, but that is being expressed.
Thank you. Councillor Oswald.
I support the view that Councillor Micklewhite's saying. He is the local member, I am their county councillor. I happened to be at a couple of meetings before he became county councillor when they were discussing that, and it's exactly as he says. There's a strong feeling within the parish council that they ought to have been taken out, but yet there's a strong feeling in the village that they ought to have been left in.
It's 50-50.
Sorry, I don't believe it is 50. It's 50-50 in terms of the responses that we have on paper.
Yeah.
But if you don't ask people, it's more in favour of reinstatement.
Yes, that's right. The parish council does have a couple of landowners on there, and when it was being discussed, certainly one of the landowners was present at the parish council meeting, which put, I believe, I sat and watched it, which put pressure on the parish council to perhaps take a different view from the majority of the village. I watched it happen. Out of the 3 sites, clearly 2 of them, certainly, as was said by Councillor James, one's lost an appeal already. As an independent person looking at it, one of them I don't think is an important open space at all, personally, but if that's the view of the village, that's the view of the village. But it's completely right, and that's what happened, and that's what happened up to it, because I attended several meetings and listened to it. But I support the advice as well.
Thank you. Just a number of responses weren't that great in terms of the village. I mean, 28, 13, 15. And normally, in my experience, it's a major planning matter. You get a lot of responses. There's an issue there, what for, against. And obviously, there's a divided view in Wednesday, what you say.
I suspect the response rate would be somewhat higher if it was an actual planning application, as opposed to just the comments being yes.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, are you happy to accept the 3 recommendations for you? Thank you. Next one, Councillor James, is biodiversity SPP for North Hampshire consultation.
Yes. Watchword here is biodiversity, for those of you who watch Planet Earth. But this is really a county-wide initiative which builds on the initiative by 4 of the Northamptonshire authorities to adopt a fairly common, as far as possible, approach on matters of biodiversity, which as a council we have a great interest in because it is relevant to our green credentials as a council, and we must be seen to be promoting these initiatives. What it does, it provides a sort of, not a toolkit, but it provides a way forward for both planning officers and also for developers. Look at how they must approach these matters when submitting some of the larger scale applications particularly. Now it may well be that we have differences in Daventry districts as opposed to other parts of the county. If that does prove to be the case, then there's no reason why we can't make amendments to this document following any valid evidence of that after the consultation. This time, because of the time of year, there would be an 8-week consultation rather than the normal 6-week period. It's a very interesting document, actually, to read which I was rather surprised at. Look on page 145. I did not know this. Many plant species which are native to the UK are not in fact found in Northamptonshire. And some species are only found in certain parts of the county. I'm quite surprised now. Whether that's because we're right in the middle of it is interesting, it's well worthwhile. The document seems to concentrate on the net gain, where the developer has to make additional provision for loss or injury to biodiversity. So there must be a net gain afterwards rather than just putting some mitigation courses of lesson policy. And that's all I'd like to say.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Dean, Councillor James. Very succinct. Open to questions and comments. Councillor Collins.
Yeah, thank you. Fully support the document in its entirety without amendments, but I think it's important to discuss a few things in it that are important to all of us. The first thing is that obviously it's not, it may be designed towards planning, but obviously when you're talking biodiversity, you've got to look at the beginning of an umbrella around Daventry. And in the report it says on the very first page in section 4 information, it says the duty can be achieved in part through including appropriate policies of local plans. And I think this is important because whenever anything, once you adopt something like this, when anything comes up that can impact biodiversity, whether it be Park Service in 2018 as an example, we've got a duty of care to remember back to a document like this. As we go in a little bit deeper, it kind of says the same things without actually hitting on it. I'll just read a couple of other bits out. On 132 it says, it should support swift delivery of the right development in the right places while avoiding or minimising the harm caused by other developments. And one of the things you touched on was, we said that plant species have died out. Well, unfortunately, one of the problems is because we have a kind of a chop and cut service at the moment. We've had that, like most councils do, for 20 odd years. We've lost a lot of indigenous species, both wildlife and animals, and once those seeds have gone, they don't come back. They may go dormant in the soil, but they don't come back. As you go further into the document, I promise not to take up too much of the time, it touches on these ecosystems. It actually says on page 142, they will carry out these deep phase 1 habitat surveys, and effectively what a habitat survey is a year-long plus review of an area for planning, which will look at everything in terms of what's actually there at that point, what the planners will need to be aware of, and what other things you can encourage. But it really goes on to say how they would have to maintain it after the year-long report, how you would have to get the right people in to do the work to keep it maintained. The other thing that this report probably doesn't cover is the fact that, as I've already touched on, you have a leaching effect. So if you have one really well-maintained area, but around it is not so well-maintained, it can actually cause problems to that bioarea that you're trying to look after. So I think it's very important to sort of bear those sort of things in mind. And finally, on page 145, it says that the management plans and long-term funding must both be in place to ensure enhancements are sustainable and results are lasting biodiversity, which is what I'm really hitting at. This is just the beginning of that bigger umbrella. It talks at the bottom of the very same page about how you would encourage ornamental planting and how you would encourage certain trees for the green aspect, as you mentioned. But all of it really is the beginning of the bigger umbrella. I just wanted to bring that to you.
It's very helpful, Councillor Constantine. You have an interest in this area, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's what we might do. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. On page 132, second paragraph, in the case of Daventry District, the updated SPD would build on the existing policies in the WNJCS. Will or can the officers confirm that we are not duplicating what is already in the joint core strategy, and this would be, as it says, an updated design supplementary planning document? I beg your pardon.
Chairman, the simple answer is yes. This is elaboration, builds on fairly sparsely worded policies in the core strategy to provide detail about how actually to go about filling it.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. Are there any more questions or comments? No. If not, can we agree that it's all right?
Agreed.
Next item, Councillor James, is revisions to custom self-build register.
Yes, custom self-build register. The government has imposed a duty on local authorities to ensure that there are enough service plots for those who wish to build their own property or contract someone to do it for them, custom self-build. That duty came in 1st of April of this year. Since then there have been additional changes brought in which give the council a number of options. We have a register of those who are interested in custom and self-building a property. There are 12 applicants on that register at the moment in what is known as the first phase period, which was from the 1st of April to the 31st of October of this year. What the government is proposing that we continue on an annual basis to 31st of October each year, providing a register which has two parts to it. First of all, those that are interested, who want to register and interested in doing that. And secondly, a second part of the register, those that are interested in doing it, but of course don't fulfil the requirements to actually go on part one of the register. And there'll be an annual fee charge, which is suggested £16 a year for part one of the register and £8 a year for part two. The eligibility criteria for going on the register is similar to the housing allocation policy. It's quite wide, and it's very inclusive. It includes care leavers, for example, people who have previously lived in the district who have never had to go into care and then move back to the district and want to build their own house on their own property. And the armed forces, they're included in it too. As far as Daventry District is concerned, we have to show that we have enough serviced plots of land, that's those with gas, electricity, water and drainage, to meet the number of people on the register. Other places like a bit of pressure for us to grant land permissions. of course, if there are only 12 applicants on the register at the present, bearing in mind that at every planning committee there is usually 1 or 2 approvals for individual plots of land, we should have no difficulty meeting our duty to provide planning. And of course, in the final analysis, if a local authority were that desperate, then it might be forced into a court to suddenly grant planning permission on 1 or 2 plots to meet the demand. But that's highly unlikely, I think, to happen in Daventry district. Judging on one's experience of the planning applications that come forward every fortnight or so. So you could say, well, really, what's the point of this? I suppose it's another, dare I say, another little gimmick dreamed up by government to put pressure on planners. Well, it certainly won't pressure us.
Thank you, Councillor.
I just think it's government have a perception that there are a lot of people out there that want to build houses themselves, and they want to try and make it easier for them. That they perceive something that is wrong, in my belief. Similar to their views on shared ownership as well. They believe that that is the best thing since sliced bread, and they ought to be promoting that. Well, it's not the best thing since sliced bread, and hasn't proved to be, and nor I believe it is. But support the advice.
Thank you, Councillor Oswald. Any other comments or observations or questions? No? Are you happy to support the recommendation? Great. Thank you. Statement of community involvement, Councillor James.
Basically, this is a statement of community involvement.
Thank you for that.
It shows how we engage with the public in respect of the planning and development process, the statutory process, as well as the nuts and bolts process, and how we engage with these people. There are opportunities to become involved in commenting and being consulted, and to be helped too. So it's a useful document for both individual constituents as well as those that are involved with the business end of the stick, developers and planning officers.
Thank you, Mr. Councillor James. It's a resolved item because it's about all we're doing tonight, the actual consultation process.
There is an 8-week consultation period.
That's right, yeah. So we look forward to seeing what responses we get from there. Any comments? Are you happy to agree the resolved item? Thank you. Move on to housing and environmental health issues now. Allocation scheme review, Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek approval to consult on a review of the housing allocation scheme. All local housing authorities are required by law to have a scheme detailing the council's policy on how an application for affordable housing within the district will be assessed and prioritised. The allocation scheme was last adopted in 2013, with amendments made most recently in December 15. Given continued changes in circumstances, it is now considered necessary to undertake a comprehensive review. A number of issues relating to the allocation of social housing have arisen which require consultation in order for the council to make informed decisions about its housing policies. Permission to consult on these issues is therefore fundamental in its process. I ask that it be resolved that consultation be undertaken on the review of the council's housing allocation scheme, in Appendix A, adopted in July 2013 and last amended in December 2015, with the relevant stakeholders and the wider community. Thank you, Chair.
Proceed, Councillor Warren. Comments, questions or observations? Councillor Randall.
Yeah, there's a piece there, 11.4 on owner occupiers. I know we introduced a clause, I don't know if it was 3 years ago that we did it, where up until that time, if there was a provision and somebody had sold their property, they would be able to bid and pay full rent. I think that's how it works. and then we changed it so that that was then scrapped. And what happened in that time was I spoke to many of the housing providers, and a lot of the sheltered accommodation that was always full and had a waiting list suddenly had empty properties. And you know, the concern of mine is that we have got a lot of elderly people in our district that may own a property, that may need to sell that property because they can no longer manage the upkeep, and may wish to go into sheltered accommodation, quite willing to pay that full rent, and they're not eligible. So, you know, that is the thing that I've found when I spoke to housing providers. And I just wondered if there's a register kept on that at all. And the other one, on 11.7, antisocial behaviour, I've come across a few residents that have reported antisocial behaviour to the housing provider, such as drug taking or drug dealing or things like that. And for the housing provider, obviously, to be involved, but they still remain in that property and they're still causing people a nuisance. So, you know, reading this now, I will suggest that not only will they speak with their housing provider, but to speak to the council as well. Is that the correct way to go?
Sorry.
Perhaps deal with both of those points. Thank you. In terms of the owner-occupiers, we've not had that problem reported to us, but this is a consultation. If there is an issue, we're very happy to take evidence on that, and obviously the final version can be revised. In terms of 11.7, I think possibly you're misunderstanding what the purpose is here. This is about saying someone who has been identified as causing antisocial behaviour is prohibited from going on the housing list. It doesn't do anything about management of existing tenancies. That really would be from the current registered provider or experience the police or an antisocial behaviour team.
Yeah, just to clarify, sheltered housing, there's no difference to the policy since 2013, because owner-occupiers who want sheltered housing can go on the housing waiting list. And sheltered housing has often been low demand properties because the kind of sheltered housing people want is bigger than a lot of the stock we've got. So there's actually the change in policy is making no difference at all in my time involved in housing, which is over 9 years. So and as Simon said, antisocial behaviour is something that is dealt with by the landlord, but also by the police in the unit. So any reports and by whatever happens as well, because sometimes it's nuisance behaviour.
Thank you, Maria and Simon. David, Councillor Jones.
Speaking, Chairman, thank you. There is a strategic planning relation to this. It's regarding the NRDA, the Northampton-related development area. As the report says, there's no agreement has been reached with the Borough Council about but we are working on the case.
Working on it. You're hopeful that agreement can be reached?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful. Any other comments? Councillor Ritchie.
My comments, Chair, are really just on the nature of the document. You want to consult. I assume that there's a requirement to consult. But you also want to know the views of people who are perhaps general public, people who are involved in the resolution of housing problems, as well as people who actually have housing problems. And in the latter case, I think any consultation has got to report on whose views you're talking about, rather than trying to wrap them all up as a single total. But I'm just worried about people in that latter category being asked to comment on a 50-page document, where you've got to search through to find out where the actual questions are, and to be able to understand what has been proposed that is a change from the present situation. I just feel that for many people that if you're going to conduct a meaningful consultation, you need to have questions and language in a document that is going to be very much more friendly and in the terms that somebody would want to respond to.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Simon, just go to that, please.
A question and a proposition there. In terms of the question, the only legal requirement is to consult registered providers of affordable housing, as in the housing associations. So we're going beyond the legal requirement in terms of the consultation process. In terms of how accessible it is, it's a difficult balance. The document is allocating a scarce resource. It has to have sort of legal precision so that it can be applied consistently and fairly. And it has to, unfortunately, refer to various rather legalistic, some cases legal documents and legalistic concepts. And that does make it difficult. We have done our best to make it user-friendly, trying to adopt plainer English, and generally make it a more accessible document. But I accept it is still quite a difficult challenge if you're used to reading that kind of thing. So I would look, I think, to the sort of advocacy groups to be the mediator there, to help us get the views of people in those situations, take it on board.
And if people want to contact the council, they can contact us.
Absolutely, they can contact us and they can ask questions about it.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Osborne.
I was going to make exactly the same point as Officer just made, and added a sentence that housing is complicated, the legislation and the allocation and everything. It's not easy to put it over in very, very simple questions, because one question gives you another one, gives you another one. It isn't easy, it isn't simple, and it's very difficult to do. So when you see that long document, that's probably the easiest way it can be put across. So people will need help, because it's not simple.
Not simple. Thanks for that, Councillor Osborne. Anything else you want to add, Councillor Warren? Have you just put the recommendation forward? Are you happy to set the recommendation? Thank you. Move on to resources issues now. Treasury Management Strategy Statement and Annual Investment Strategy Mid-Year Review 2016-2017. Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Chairman. A regular review of Treasury Management position divided, as usual, into 4 sections. Order, first of all, to review the economic situation, which of course tallies exactly with that of the Chancellor yesterday, who agrees with her, so I won't dwell on that anymore.
You've got the messages here, wasn't it?
Yep. We confirm that there is no change to the annual investment strategy. That's paragraph 5 I'm looking at. Paragraph 6, where we look at the capital expenditure, we note underspend rather than slippage. Other way around. Slippage rather than underspend. The wrong way around. Slippage into next year rather than underspend, which reduces the capital budget significantly. And the other headline I would draw attention to, paragraph 7. You'll see there the various institutions that have our 49 million. That report as at 30th September. If you take your calculator to the redemptions, of which there are quite a few, you see Landbank was redeemed on the 7th of November, and then there's a whole tranche of redemptions going down from Nationwide to Santander. Those redemptions are 27.5 million, and the rates that we used to get, you can see there are from 0.65 from Santander to 1.06 for Landbank. All that money, 27.5 million, has gone out again, but the rates we've been able to achieve on that tranche of money vary between 0.57 and 0.65. So a significant reduction in the interest level that we're assuming, and later on you'll see in the budgets that the amount of interest that we put into reserves is reduced by about 100,000. So that is all I need to say on the Treasury Management Mid-Year Review. Is there any questions from members? And we invite members to note it.
Thanks indeed, Councillor Shepherd. On Westmore Primary School, I can assure this council has done everything in its power to try and move that along. But as I say, not all things are possible. That's still moving forward, hopefully that will be delivered next year. Any other comments or questions that you're happy to accept? Oh, sorry, Councillor Randall.
Yeah, only a quick one. On page 299, Eastern Way Roadworks, this project is subject to a review bid as projected costs exceed the current budget. Is it this council that's paying for that roadworks, or was it the developer, or all of it, or part of it, or?
Right. Can I have help with something?
Chairman, the project title is not Recycling D. That's the Eastern Way, get my compass points correct, the Eastern Way South development site, essentially, the enabling works for that. The cost that came back from Daventry Highways is significantly above the budget we set. We're therefore, for a pause on that, we're considering whether we need to do such extensive work so that we can achieve the development with the less extension, and that will become clear as the work to the northern side of that road is also clarified. So for the moment, there's no rush to spend that money, and certainly no rush to come back out and increase budget as things stand. It might be necessary, but we will see. So it's a scheme to develop, to change the road to enable development, not a road scheme per se. And yes, it is the easy company.
Thank you. Councillor McGuire.
Thank you. I wonder if I could just ask a couple of questions in respect to section 7, which is the investment portfolio. In view of the fact that a number of those organisations are clearly not UK banks, could you just confirm whether or not we hold money investments anywhere other than in sterling, and whether we hold any of them outside of the UK?
I believe we're all in sterling. Audrey, can you help?
Yes. We do have, as members will know, some money in an escrow account in Iceland.
Yeah,
so
I'm sorry, I'm
we do
aware of
have
that
some
one. Leave that one to one side.
Some Icelandic krona, so no, the rest of them are in sterling. With regards to the countries that we have money invested in at the moment, the institutes and their countries, that ranges from Germany, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Canada, UK and France.
But is our contract with a British subsidiary or with foreign bank?
It's in sterling, so for instance, Qatar National Bank.
With a British subsidiary company of the Qatar Bank,
yes.
Or with the Qatar Bank in Qatar?
It's with the Qatar Bank in Qatar.
So if there was a problem, we would have to take legal action in Qatar, would we?
Yes, and with regards to our credit rating criteria, whilst it's all of those countries, the credit rating criteria of all of those countries must also meet our very strict criteria. So yes, it's those countries.
Like Iceland was one.
Lots of things have changed since Iceland, Councillor before.
Missed our chance on the dolly, it seems, before the report today. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Are you happy to note that report?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Second one, Council Tax Reduction Scheme. Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you. Members will recall discussing this at the last strategy group in September, and Council subsequently resolving that our response to the review is to slightly rejig the scheme in order to bring it in line with government welfare changes, and that was known as option 2, highlighted at the bottom of 304. And as part of this process, we then consulted all the existing persons who claim this benefit were consulted, some 2,150 odd. There were also comments from others. And members should note that the changes that are proposed are for new applicants with effect from 1st April. So existing claimants are not affected.
That's very important.
The consultation is as described. We've had a lot about consultation tonight, and those who were directly consulted arguably had more of an interest, although they wouldn't directly be involved in the changes. So the results are there, and fortunately, happily, the responses were in line with the Council's preferred option, of option 2, and you see there the details at 305 of the responses, and at Appendix 1 you see some various comments that were made. And the highlight there, of course, is the fourth from the bottom. I strongly agree with option 2. It seems a good idea, and it is very fair. that is presumably what members thought when they approved option 2 as their preferred option in council. So there we are. We recommend, I invite members to recommend that the final scheme for the CT reduction for 17-18 is set out in option 2, Chairman.
Actually, Councillor Shepherd, comments, observations? Councillor Randall? Councillor Pritchard?
I'm just interested in option 2. Although there might be some national guidance to this, but in terms of leaving Great Britain for a period of 4 weeks or more, does that mean that council tax reduction will be suspended indefinitely for that period of time? Because does that not mean that those that have ill health, disability, and may have funded flights from relatives abroad, places in Poland, Lithuania, further afield to Asia, that when they come back to find care being provided abroad, that they come back and penalised? Is that not punitive, unnecessary?
My understanding is that this is, as I said, replicating welfare changes to welfare benefits, which is that if one leaves the country for 4 weeks, one has to reapply.
Will you confirm that, Tony?
Mr. Chairman, what we're doing is bringing it in line with the welfare changes. I don't know the exact detail of how it's applied, but it will be applied in the same way that the welfare reform agenda is set out.
Can you get that established by council?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that was established for you. Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Randall?
Yes, thank you. On option 2, the remove the family premium. It seems that that we're encouraging families to be working. A lot of these will be on low paid, and to remove that seems a bit harsh.
Councillor Shepherd?
I don't recall whether we discussed this particular aspect before. We of course have approved and identified our preference for option 2 being on the basis significantly of aligning it with government welfare changes, which does remove this premium for all working age applicants.
The consultation response supported that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Chairman, if I may, just to reiterate the point that this will only apply to new claimants.
New claimants, yeah.
Still option.
So, Councillor Ritchie.
If it only applies to new claimants, we've had a survey of many of the existing claimants. A very, very low response, but given the nature of the people that we've been surveying, that doesn't surprise me greatly. It seems again strange, and I raise this again, of actually mixing responses from that sector of the population with others who may have responded simply through the website. However, we've targeted this survey on people who have the option of saying that, look, I like to keep things the way that they are. I don't mind if you introduce these harsher measures that are going to affect new claimants. If you had managed to do a survey of people who, by some crystal ball that you knew, and they knew that they were going to need to make claims, you would have had a very different response. Now, the only difference in cost between option 1 and option 2, I understand, is 34,000. I would be interested to know how that 34,000 is split between E to F under option 2. I mean, which of these particular clauses generates the biggest reduction in the amount that we would need to pay?
Audrey?
Members, if I may, and you've used the words very carefully there yourself, crystal ball gazing. Because this is for new claimants, we have to make an assessment of how many new claimants and which category they fall in. So we take historical data based on, I can't give you the exact split across, but in terms of current claimants, we look at the rate of who's in there and have to do a judgment call, because whilst there are existing claimants, there's obviously churn of those claimants, and we do have to have our best estimate in terms of that. So even if I had an exact breakdown for each one that we've had on that line, it really would be just an estimate of what we think our new claimants would be. It's impossible to say.
Chair, if I can come back on that. I mean, of course, you can only make an estimate.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we've got this figure of 34,000, which must have come from somewhere. Was the 34,000 entirely due to the number of dependent children that you expected that that might be arising, or was a large part of it due to people who might be going overseas for more weeks? Just to get some feel of who are the people who are likely to be affected by this. 34,000 is not a very big amount of money. It's much less than we're going to pay on a women's cycle race. It is much less, very much less than we're going to pay on turf for a football field. And these are things that I totally support. But when we are here, when we've had in the evening news bulletins just today, the projections from the Office of Budget Responsibility, the Resolution Foundation, and all these other organisations about what the economic situation is likely to mean for people who are poor, who are vulnerable. I just feel that here we are a month short of Christmas Eve. I just feel that we should not be doing this. That there's an argument for saying that it is not simply to say we continue as normal. We continue as normal and put out a press statement saying that here are where the values of Daventry District Council are. These are the things that we believe in, and we are not going to follow other councils into making miserly cuts that affect vulnerable people that don't actually save us a great deal of money.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Tell me just about the figure 34,000.
Yes, Chairman, we haven't got figures this evening, but we can get that breakdown. Instructions made on that. But if I could just add in terms of the savings, 34,000 is not so huge in the scheme of things. But this affects the total monies collected through council tax. The 30,000 is the impact to this council. The impact to the county council of £200,000 in excess. So it's not just about
more than impact to the county.
The impact here. In respect to the consultation, CFO has answered that to a degree. Yes, it's difficult to know who the new claimants are going to be, but what we have done is gone out to those who are current claimants. Some of those may well be claimants, again, new claimants in the new year. If they go into work and then come back out again, they may well be new claimants.
Thank you. We'll get some more information from Councillor. Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Shepherd. Are you happy to put forward a recommendation? Oh, sorry, Councillor Osborne. My apologies.
Just a quick question, Chair. Am I right in thinking that you don't have to give money off? You have to have some kind of scheme, but I thought there was no obligation for councils to give a reduction.
That's correct.
Right, so in a real world, in a real right-wing authority, you would say no reductions to anybody. The fact that we're offering a scheme which this council has suggested, it's gone out to consultation, the consultees have said we'll accept that scheme, they are getting benefit from it, and I see no reason why we shouldn't go ahead with it then, Chairman. They're getting something that we don't have to give at all.
That's correct. Thank you, Councillor Osborne. Councillor Shepherd, want to put the recommendation forward?
Yeah, it is.
You have to agree with the recommendation?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. 2016-17 capital and revenues budget and medium-term financial plan. Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Chairman. We deal with this in three sections. The updated assumptions, then revenue, then capital. Perhaps I can pause at the end of each section and take them as we go forward. So in terms of the assumptions, we can see on 312 the table with which I'm sure you're very familiar with. That comes out in a similar form in each report that we consider the general fund revenue position. So that's pretty well no change there. The non-domestic rate, so the settlement funding, I should have mentioned that. Of course, the Chancellor was entirely silent yesterday. We did release a press statement after the annual, after the autumn statement, to the effect that local government would be told within 2 weeks what the effect of the autumn statement is. So we expect to see some further intelligence from the Chancellor in the next fortnight. The non-domestic rates retention scheme, a lot of news about that. All I want to say really is two things. Firstly, it is jolly complicated, and secondly, it is intended by government to be neutral, fiscally neutral for local authorities.
So collectively.
What?
Collectively.
Collectively, well, yes.
Allegedly.
Well, until the Chancellor clarifies his position with regard to the increases that we may participate in, we take a prudent view that there's going to be little change, at least in the next year. On to savings and efficiencies, if I may, at 314 onwards. These again have been flagged recently in terms certainly of the commercial rent increase, commercial rent income, and additionally a small amount of resources savings in employee costs highlighted at 415. The new homes bonus, there's a bit of debate here between Audra and myself as to the actual effect of this. Currently we get 6 years, equivalent value of 6 years council tax benefit from the government on new homes, probably to be reduced to 4, so we can almost certainly accept a reduction of 1/3. Audra has been basing her assumptions on a further reduction of a further third to effectively reduce the cash receipt by 2/3. And that's the assumption on which we are basing further projections. But that will clarify hopefully within, well, I don't know about 2 weeks, but clarify in due course. The council tax support scheme we have just resolved, and the outturn position shows a favourable variance of £250,000, represented by those figures at the bottom at 418. So that concludes part 1.
Pause there then, John. Pause for a second.
Pause there, if I may. Update assumptions.
Anyone wants to come back to one point?
Yeah, I just want to clarify for members with regard to the new homes bonus and why I put in there that it's a 2/3 cut. The government did say at one time that they were going to cut the new homes bonus pot by £800 million. And the new homes bonus pot at the time was 1.2 billion, so we knew that they were looking for a cut of around 2/3. Now it is subject to consultation, and there are actually 4 elements that they're going to introduce with regards to new homes bonus and the changes. One of which is to go from 6 years to 4 years, which we know just on that basis will find 1/3. They've also introduced another 3 elements that they're consulting on that are intended to find, if you like, the other third. One of which is to introduce a cap on new homes bonus being received based on an assumed amount of growth of your tax base before you'll actually earn any new homes bonus. So it's not me being just pessimistic putting in the 2/3. That is in line with what the government were looking to cut new homes bonus by.
So there's a very prudent approach, which has always worked for us in the past.
Yes, you see, Chairman, we have the difficulty of trying to deduce what the government really means.
Well, we never know until we do it. You may always guess.
Yeah.
You guess right. Are there any other comments on that part? Yes, Councillor Randall.
Yeah, just looking on page 316.
Not there yet.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
Jumping ahead again, mate.
Sorry.
No other comments, John? Move on to part 2 then.
Thank you. Okay, part 2 starting at 316, revenue growth bits.
And I preface this by saying that there's new growth here of 400,000 or so that I'm going to be referring to. At the end of the day, we hope and sincerely trust that there are no further growth bids, and that after these growth bids, if they are all approved, we are still well within the projection of increasing council tax by £5, which is the rate, which is the level that the government assumes that we're going to be increasing it by, and that's the level that's been referred to at the same breath as giving us 4 years certainty of various supports. So that's the background. Going through to the details, a 150,000 at item 1 of 419. Our scales of employee payments are fixed on the Hay scale, and we're on the lower quartile of that scale. And this throws up some particular difficulties in one or two technical areas, and the desire is to have a flexibility of 150,000 to devote to hard-to-fill positions. Council tax reduction scheme we've dealt with. Customer advisor at 24,000. We experience extreme pressure on the contact centre. Members might have, from their own experience, agree with that. So there is a growth bid there for additional support to the contact centre. Planning records, digitisation, 12,000, small element there, part of the modernisation of planning records. Homelessness accommodation. Homelessness, of course, is one of our few demand-led expenses. We are finding that we have been overspending. We can't restrict really the spending here. So this is a recognition of the inevitable, that there is a requirement to increase the homeless accommodation budget, 53,000 there. Women's tour, over the page, we've already agreed. The community partnership, not a lot of discretion here. SNC have withdrawn cash funding of 23,000. We've been able to replace that. We can replace that by finding 17,000. So that's the request there to enable the community safety partnership activities to proceed unaffected by the cash withdrawal from SNC. Review of asset holdings. This is a matter that was resolved following confidential papers and has been resolved by Council, so I do not propose to say anything further on that. Two items on loss of interest, which arguably are not really revenue growth or otherwise. It's just reflects what we mentioned earlier, that rates are going down, and we put anyway the money that we get in this area into reserves. So that's not a direct effect on revenue. Insurances, tender exercise there. We expect an increase inevitably. On this particular occasion, it is very helpful, indeed essential. Some insurers do only deal with brokers, and in order to advise us, we propose to instruct a broker at a modest cost there. Over the page, 318, tendering exercise also for payroll services. One-off cost involved there. Daventry calling we've already dealt with. Malpass Farm, members may recall a report in May that the county had directed us to deliver residual waste to another location. This was anticipated cost 148.
it's going to cost a bit more than that. So again, we have no alternative but to increase the revenue budget by a small amount there. Local plan, further growth bid as suggested there of 78,000 to undertake the evidence base substantially provided for already by earmarked reserves and additional funding element required there. And last but not least, I'm sure, for Daventry Town, painting of street furniture. Nice to think that the current council could take over street furniture, but there we are. Painting of street furniture, £27,000. So the summary at paragraph 5, taking into account those issues. And if there are any questions on any of the specific items, perhaps we could have those now.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Any questions or comments? Councillor Randall.
No, first off, the customer advisor, I know that it's since 2011, and we all know what demand's been on the council since we took over the contract. I'm just wondering, once we, no longer go with that company, if that means that complaints, hopefully, or phone calls into the centre will decrease. Then if it decreased significantly to what it was before, then what would happen? Would that mean that we'd have a redundancy?
Well, I assume that an operational matter for our staff to deal with.
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering, is that post down to, mainly that contract? Because I know so many people, that have phoned in, that will never ever have phoned into the council before, that they repeatedly phone in because of the failure of that contract, and which, to me, we're picking up the bill, on that.
2 years to 2 year budget, Councillor Randall, yeah.
Then the temporary homeless accommodation, I'm pleased to see that we're looking, to rent somewhere. Would that be somewhere in the town or somewhere local within the district? Yeah. Okay. And then again, it's a disappointment that we have to, it's cost us another lot of money to on our residual waste, having to go into rugby, so that's a real disappointment. And obviously the painting of the street furniture, just picked up that, maybe it's something that the town council could pick up on. The town council has had some work, they paid for some before. I don't know if there's been any discussion with the town council on whether they would...
Well, they try and influence the council around what they quite helpful.
I don't know if there have been any discussions. And the other one on page 321,
Not ready, jumping ahead again.
Gosh.
Thank you. Any more comments, observations? If not, on to stage 3, Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you. Okay, at 320, the proposed new schemes, new build Heartlands is in the pink later on, so defer to that. Main accounting system upgrade. Fortunately, we can utilise capital for an upgrade of Aggresso, which I'm advised is very necessary. 30,000 there. The telephone system, this shows a huge amount of, members might say wrinkliness or senility or something, whatever it is. I remember debate about the existing telephone system being put in place, and Audra tells me it's between 15 and 20 years ago. So it's now run out.
It's going well then.
It's now discharged itself. So it is in dire need of being replaced because, of course, we're hostage to fortune. It is not going to be supported by the end of this year. So there's no alternative there but to obtain a new one, and that's mostly, it's all capital, 145. The car park machine,
to upgrade that to require number plates to be noted, which hopefully will increase payments. Don't ask me what the dipping platform is, but it needs 25,000. Hopefully someone can help. I didn't ask the obvious question of what is it, but I'm sure it's a super clear. The sports park artificial scheme we've dealt with elsewhere, include that, and CCTV is also a neutral expense. It's going to be paid for by 106. Going on now to revisions to existing capital schemes. We've talked about much more earlier. Slippage. Site 3 implementation is again re-profile, I suppose. Slippage. Opportunity D. We've got a report later on that as well, so to run on to that stage. And then we have the summary. And any questions or comments, please, now on that third section?
Thank you, Mr. Councillor Shepherd. Comments, observations, Councillor Randall.
Yeah, sorry. The car parking machine at the country park.
Yeah.
So I assume that we collect 14,000 on that, which is very controversial. So many cars club at the car park because they don't want to pay any money. That machine does not take notes. I went down there recently and I only had a note, so I couldn't even pay for my parking because it only had coins. But obviously, I don't know, there was talk before about making it a cardless, a card paying machine only, where a lot of people still don't have cards in this town. I know a lot of people who don't have any sort of cards, only pay by cash. And, you know, is it worth it? You know, it's such a small amount of money, 7,000. I mean, I would sooner that we didn't pay for parking there at all.
Car parking is significantly more than 7,000 a year. Is it like 40 off the top of my head?
Well, it just said it indicates fewer than 50% of car parking.
Yeah, that is, what's been requested is £7,000 to invest in upgrading the machine so that you require people to put the number in so they can't swap tickets. What we know happens, because we've seen it, is that people stay at the park for an hour or two, it allows them to sail down, they pass it on to somebody as they leave. So people are getting away without buying tickets. This will stop that happening. I'm sure it's something like 40,000 a year, the car parking income, and that does go towards covering the cost of running the country park. And at the moment it's coin machines, but we have looked at bringing in card pay machines. I think that there's a capital budget for that, but we've got some issues around how that could work with our current enforcement, so we haven't gone ahead with that yet.
I'm aware, Chair, of the danger of us discussing what's effective with the petty cash, but I'm delighted to hear that we're looking at having machines that offer different methods of payment. I've got to confess, I'm a very, very frequent user of the country park. I don't cheat in the machine because I simply don't park in that car park. Because the dog use walkers and many others who are using the country park are using the country park for about half an hour. And the idea of paying for a full day's parking for half an hour's use, it simply doesn't seem good value. Is there an opportunity here for the officers to think a little bit about, do you have, as a normal car park would have, that you have, you know, you have something for the first hour and something for 3 hours and something for a full day?
Okay, I'll ask Councillor Shepherd to outside this meeting, and I'll discuss it now. Point's been made though, and I know at Longbuck Station, for instance, you can pay by card or cash there, and that's also quite good. You put your number plates in.
That's number plates.
A number plate, it's the number plate thing, yes. Councillor Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just page 322, I've kept up. CCTV at the fish ponds, £5 grand for us, £5 grand for the town council for the 2 cameras. There's nothing in there to say who will manage the upkeep of those cameras. I assume that because the system belongs to the town council, that any damage to the one that we are paying for through 106 contribution will obviously be donated to the town council, and they will be responsible for the upkeep. That's that. The car park at the country park. There's not many not many country parks in the district where you don't have to pay, and you know, 40k approximately for the revenue for the car park. I would think that 99% of it is spent within the country park, so I mean that's a benefit, and it's one of the more reasonable country parks. I understand Councillor Ritchie with walking a dog, but you know, I'm not being rude when I say his accent is lends to being more frugal with. But there are plenty of spaces to walk dogs within Daventry. We have more public open space in Daventry than we've ever had in Daventry's history. We can take Borough Hill, we can take north of Lang Farm, etc., etc., Kennel Woods. So it's not the only place to go, and I don't have a problem with the parking. I think the revenue is well spent.
Yeah, the idea of members of Richard was that it would be reinvested back in the country club. Well, I think you can get season tickets out.
That's correct.
That's right, you can get a season ticket, which obviously might be better.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the point you're making, but obviously you want to...
It's just, I know very many people who are in the position that they don't. You could increase the revenue if you get the right structure.
Well, the season tickets are a good idea, the regular there. Yeah. That's probably worthwhile actually. I'm not sure what the cost is, but I mean, that's so real.
We have actually looked at how long people stay and having short and long stay options, and when we did a detailed assessment of how long people stay there, the one-off fee is actually represents the best value for the people.
That's good to know. But you make a fair point. Councillor Guildford.
Just the 2 questions. I think you've already answered one. Because the income used to be ring fence to the country park.
Well, that's the idea.
And it's still that. The other thing is, I'm not sure on the actual reasons for the reduction in income, in that I've visited the country park 3 times now in the past 6 months. And hands up, I haven't paid once. And the reason I haven't paid once is because the machine has been out of order.
You can pay now. You can pay now. You go to your machine. That's a good idea, Councillor Osborne.
I'm just pointing out that ticket swapping may not be the main
They're making a fair point there.
I'm making a fair point that I've been parked free. The 3 times I've visited in the last 6 months because the machines don't work.
Is that a fair point? I'm not sure you monitor that.
I think it's probably fair to say that one of the reasons why the machines are out of order is that we get full of cash, which if you're on a busy day has been a problem. Once we're able to move to accepting cashless payments, we should have that problem very much less.
You can donate the difference to the charity. And Councillor Nicolai,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a further observation about Long Buckby Station. I agree with Councillor Randall that you need to be careful with people who don't have cards if you're going to have card payments. I'm fairly sure, I might be wrong, I'm fairly sure that Long Buckby Station allows you to pay by text as well.
It does.
Virtually everybody nowadays has got a phone. 3 questions. I mean, do you actually have any evidence as to what proportion of the 50% shortfall is caused by swapping? Because if we don't, it's a bit of a spurious justification. Secondly, what is it actually costing us to empty the machine and cart the cash off to the bank every year? Because it weighs a lot. I know from other places it costs an awful lot of money shipping it to, not to the local branch, but to a central cash point collating centre. And thirdly, can somebody tell me what is our de minimis for capital spend for the project?
Okay, right. So?
De minimis, I think, £1,000, yeah. That's good revenue.
Yeah, sorry, what?
£1,000.
And we do have I know what the budget is for cash, but I don't can't remember it off the top of my head, so I would have to let you know.
It's relatively small in
Yeah.
relation to this, so you say it's certain. I'm sorry, what was the first question?
Do we have any actual evidence as to what proportion of the 50% shortfall is caused by swapping, as opposed to people just not wanting to pay?
Yeah, we did a survey and we observed that only 43% of cars have got tickets on one occasion, and we witnessed the ticket swapping on that occasion, so it's a fair chunk.
So hopefully the upgrade will help sort that out as well. Councillor Hills.
Yeah, but listening to this, because the car park is part of my portfolio, there's no doubt about it, the machines do need upgrade. You know, I don't think there's any dispute on that. Don't need to be. I would confirm that the money is reinvested in the country park. And when you talk to people, and I last few weeks I haven't been there, but normally I'm at least once a week walk around the country park. Most people, when you talk to them about it, are quite happy to pay, knowing that it's been reinvested. Now then, I don't know, there is obviously some evidence that swapping takes place, but I think we could do perhaps with a bit more publicity up there as to the fact that the money is being reinvested, because, say, when you talk to people, they say they don't mind.
They don't mind.
It'd be interesting if we were to sort of do perhaps a bit more publicity in the park itself as to it being reinvested, and then see what happens from that sort of stage.
Thanks, Councillor Hills. Councillor Howard.
Similar comments to Councillor McElroy. We do about 300,000 miles a year. Our family-run business. We park in lots of car parks. All my guys have got apps on the telephones, because the majority of people do have telephones nowadays, so there's no money transaction requirement. We don't get charged any money for using the app or using the car park any more than what we currently do. All our guys get texts to say your time's up on your car parking, so they can literally just type in a code and they get the money paid from the account that we put into their bank accounts. So it's a very simple thing to do, and if they go over their time, they automatically get a parking charge. So that's done through recognition of the registration plate going through a beam or a light or a CCTV camera. So it works very well for us.
That's a big considered for that.
It's Brings Committee, Chairman. That is a scheme in the pipeline.
It's a scheme in the pipeline, so it's good that you got the experience of that one. It's
And
very straightforward.
There's no money needed, and you don't need to pay someone money to go and take the money.
So it's
There's no
cheaper to
management.
administer. Yeah. Sorry, sir.
If I may, the complexity we have is we're operating under a different legal regime. The Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984, as applied by the Traffic Management Act 2004, and the enforcement is actually carried out by Wolverhampton County Council. So it's quite involved, and yes, we would like to get to that kind of situation, but we have to work with the County Council to get to that point.
Thank you. Order.
Members, I can confirm that it costs around £3,000 per annum to collect the cash.
Thank you.
Yeah, if we're talking about the maximising revenue from machines and we're going to be putting new ones in, I'd suggest that they were spread out a little bit more for starters, to be able two together on one by the entrance and nothing down at the other end, and come up with some things to car park both ways. That would help. Also, just a simple, as long as there's something on the car parking machines that tells people how much it is, because at the moment the only indication is a small little square on the actual car parking regulation, and certainly you have to look right down in the bottom corner to understand how much you've got to pay. So I've been down there on occasions where people are standing there with the money and thinking, what have I got to put into the machine? It is a little bit confusing. I think we could do a little bit better all round.
Thanks for that feedback, Councillor Wesley. It's interesting actually, I always find this interesting, fascinating, not just this council, where you have one of the smaller budget items creates the biggest debate. It's about £7,000 here, and we have this lot of debate over that. Yeah, £2 million is just sort of pushed through. There's nothing wrong with that, because obviously just interest, isn't it? It's interest on the actual item. So is that okay, John Shannon? Anything else you want to add, or a lot of feedback there? Are you happy to accept the three recommendations? Thank you. Now move on to economic regeneration and employment issues, civic offices and admin centre improvements. Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I've no doubt that members will have read the report, so I don't intend to go through it paragraph by paragraph. There is an important item within this council chamber, and that is the plaque behind the chairman. It actually says that the building was opened in 1987. Today, myself and other colleagues greeted influential people into the building, and quite honestly I was embarrassed by the condition of some of the parts of the building. It hasn't been touched for 30 years, and quite honestly there are parts of it that are not fit for purpose, and we need to carry out that work. Now, some of you may say, oh well, okay, fine, you're spending our money, but you may remember that I was a person that objected profusely to the furniture within this chamber being upgraded and renovated. So what I'm looking at here is something that is needed. Now, the other part is Abbey House, and Abbey is a centre of revenue for the district council, and again, that building is tired. We need to attend to a lot of the matters within that building purely and simply so that we can maintain our level of revenue from that building. By putting the two together, this building and the Abbey Centre, you'll have obviously quite a big saving with regards to materials, etc., etc. You don't need me to explain all that. So the report is before you. The buildings are tired. We need to do it. So it's as simple as that. So I would hope that council agree to recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. Any questions? Councillor Adams.
Yeah, the only one question I had is I just wondered why that we've never had a yearly budget going in for upgrading and replacing things like that.
Chairman, obviously some work has been done on a sporadic fashion. The difficulty is, and I can testify to this from my own occupation here over the years, is that decorating, redoing spaces whilst after an occupation is not only possible. So we have, for many years, put off the evil day because it is so difficult to face. But there comes a point when it has to be done, and therefore the intention is to bite the bullet, and it will be disrupted. We'll have to move around like doesn't know what, but we'll end up with a building which is again fit for use.
Yeah, just coming back on that, just wondering though, the rents that are collected on across the road, whether a percentage of that rent is put into a budget for improvement costs to the building. That's what I'm getting at really, I suppose.
Simple as we know.
Thank you, Councillor.
I apologise to Councillor Ford for not having read the report. The answer may be contained therein. Has any thought been given to the possibility of a unitary authority being formed in the near future, and therefore the civil officers in particular possibly becoming defunct? Therefore, is that renovation still required?
Chairman, if I can come back, I can't go down that road purely and simply because I have to deal with the now. And the now is that the buildings, and if we talk about a unitary authority, we could also talk about the county council spending £60 million on a building that was absolutely meaningful, or meaningless rather. So I do agree with Councillor Brown that we should look forward, but by the same token I have to deal with the here and now with this building. And should it come to a unitary, there's no reason why we can't sell off this building, but to sell it off we need it maintained. And exactly the same way with the Abbey, we need to recoup maximum revenue from the sale should we go down the unitary authority route and the buildings are no longer required.
Thank you. Audrey wants to say.
Members, if I may just a clarification, this is not looking for approval of the budget, which you've already done, and we've had these discussions. This is merely about slipping it into the following year and amalgamating the budget so that we can get some economies of scale. You have already approved this expenditure.
Okay, thank you. Are you happy to agree with the 4 recommendations?
Yes.
Thank you. I have to exclude now the public and press. I think there's only one member of the public who's been about that. A former councillor, Ms. Hayday.